Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Winter by the Sea, the Speaker's Tent, event number 6. On behalf of Parks Victoria and Coast Care Victoria, we're delighted to have you join us this afternoon for a wonderful presentation from the enigmatic, mysterious and wonderful Melanie Wells. Today's going to be a very special day for all of us because not many of us are going to ever have the chance to visit such an extraordinary part of the world as the sub-Antarctic islands in the Southern Ocean. We're going to be basically taken on a journey. We're going to discover some amazing wildlife and we're going to have a wonderful presenter for us this afternoon. Before we start the presentation, I want to pay my respect to traditional owners across Victoria or wherever you might be in Australia. And in my own particular case, I want to pay my respects to the Wadawurrung people of the Geelong region. Right now, I'm going to hand over to Mel and just to say good day to us all, and we'll come back in a moment with some instructions on how this session is going to work. So welcome, Mel.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you. Good to be here.
That's a fantastic view you've got in the background there. That's not your backyard, I'm assuming, at the moment up in Newcastle.
Yeah, no, I'm actually coming to you live from the sub-Antarctic as I speak. So this is the southwest corner of Macquarie Island right now. It's very cold.
It's amazing what you can do with virtual.
I know.
All right, we'll be certainly hearing a lot more from Mel this afternoon, but just a few more things from myself before we get into today. Today's session basically is a chance for us to connect with each other across Victoria and across the rest of Australia, or wherever you might be viewing this at some stage in the future. This session is being recorded, so for those people who can't join us today, you'll be able to hear and see the wonderful presentation we're about to have in the future as well. You might like to go back and have a bit of a look at it. A couple of instructions, if you haven't already done so, there is a little chat bar on the side of your screen, or if you move your mouse around, you should get up a little speech bubble that looks like somewhere where you can write some text. And if you open that up, what we'd love you to do to start off with is to simply put your name and your location in there. Say good day to all the good folks that have joined us online this afternoon. And then throughout the course of the presentation, if you've got questions for Mel or you've got some comments to make, or you just simply want to say, wow, that was just an amazing picture or incredible thing to hear, please use that as a bit of an interactive thing. At the end of the session, we'll throw back to Mel and go through some of the questions. We may not get time if there's a lot to get through to all the questions, and we'll certainly do our best to get back to you if you leave your name, if you want to have a follow-up there. But we'll try and prioritise the questions and see those that are most relevant to the wider audience and come back to those after Mel's presentation. So that's it. We're going to strap yourselves in. We're off on a fantastic journey into the Southern Ocean, and I'm going to hand over to you now, Mel. If you could just start by sharing your desktop with me, so I've got that one ready to go. Just going to put your face back up on the screen, and you can just do a little bit of introduction. Just tell us a little about yourself for a start, please, Mel.
Awesome. Can you see that, by the way? Yep, great. Okay. Thanks for the intro, Mark. So. Thanks everybody for watching, for coming to this talk. My name's Mel, and I'm very lucky that I have spent a good part of the last 3 years living and working on one of Australia's sub-Antarctic territories. So I've spent the last 3 summers there and a winter. And what I sort of wanted to talk about today, I only have about half an hour or so, so a lot of you know that I can talk for a long time. So I'm definitely not going to be giving you an exhaustive summary of our wildlife species, but I just wanted to showcase some of our wildlife species. So I'm right to go, Mark?
You are. The presentation screen is up and live now. Thanks, Mel.
Cool. Okay, so take it away. Fabulous. Cool. Okay, so yes, I'm basically just going to showcase some of our wildlife that many people may not know are a part of Australian wildlife and may not be lucky enough to be able to experience their life histories and their behaviours and their traits in ways that I've been lucky enough to experience. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Quick little disclaimer, some of the population data that I talk about belongs to the Tasmanian Department for Primary Industries, Parks, Water and Environment, and so shouldn't be used without the appropriate permission. So just to start with, I thought I would just talk about what the sub-Antarctic or the Southern Ocean is, and what it means for these wildlife that are found in this area. So this image here is a map of the Antarctic continent, and you can see the southern extent of the great oceans of the world, the Indian Ocean, the Pacific and the Atlantic, and you know, those land masses that sort of back on to the Southern Ocean, Australia, South America and Africa. And so the Southern Ocean has this circumpolar distribution around Antarctica. And this squiggly line here in blue is what is called the Antarctic convergence or the Antarctic polar front. And what that is, that's something that varies seasonally, and basically it's a mixing point. So these very cold, nutrient-rich waters flow northward from Antarctica as the sea ice melts in the summertime, and they converge with the relatively speaking warmer waters of the Southern Ocean, and they mix, and they become this area of upwelling and very high productivity. So that is associated with large blooms of small single-cell plant life called phytoplankton, and then small animals called zooplankton are attracted to feeding on this, and then this kind of stuff sort of fuels all of the Southern Ocean food webs, and it attracts this very important creature called the Antarctic krill, which there's estimated to be about 500 million tonnes of Antarctic krill in the Southern Ocean, and it's incredibly crucial. It has it supports the entire Southern Ocean biological ecosystem directly or indirectly, and it supports some of the world's largest creatures like blue whales and wandering albatross and these kinds of thing. And so within the Southern Ocean, there's all these tiny little islands, and the flags here are explaining the sovereignty of each of the islands. So Australia has 2 territories in the sub-Antarctic. So there's Heard and McDonald Islands here in the southern Indian Ocean, which is about 4,000 kilometres southwest of Perth. And then the other one is Macquarie Island. So I'm mainly going to be talking about the wildlife from Macquarie Island, because Macquarie Island has a permanently manned research base, and that's where I've spent most of my time. But I will briefly talk about Heard Island here. So if you go back to this map, Heard Island lies within the Antarctic convergence. So the environment there is dictated by that. Some cool facts about Heard Island: it is the site of Australia's only active volcano. So this is Big Ben here, and this is McDonald Island, and McDonald Island has actually doubled in size since the 80s due to its volcanic activity. It also is the only place in Australia where you can find glaciers, and this is a great trivia question. It has Australia's highest peak, Mawson Peak there, which is I think 2,745 metres. So that's Heard Island. Heard Island is a very special place. One of the reasons why that is because it is thought to be biologically pure. And so what I mean by that is that it's one of the very few sub-Antarctic islands that has never had introduced pest species from humans. So the animals and the plant species there have been free to evolve naturally. It's one of the closest pristine environments that you can get in the world. And there's about 15 species of seabirds that nest there. There's 4 species of penguins, and there's 3 species of seals. This is the only wildlife that I'm going to show from Heard, and the rest I'm going to talk about Macca, Macquarie Island. I'll just call it Macca from now on. The reason why I'm showing you these 2 pictures is because these 2 species of birds are not found anywhere else in the world. They are what we call endemic to Heard Island, so they're unique to Heard Island. So you've got the Heard Island cormorant and the Heard Island sheathbill. Sheathbills, I've never seen one of these before, but they look like really cool animals. They look more like land birds than marine birds, and they are actually the only Antarctic bird without webbed feet, which I thought was really cool. They can find them running around the shore, and they feed on dead things that are found around the shore. And so the other sub-Antarctic island is Macquarie. It's about 1,500 k's southeast of Tassie, and I've included this photo for all of you who get your rocks off looking at bathymetric maps. I thought it was a really cool little map. Macquarie Island lies on the Macquarie Ridge, and it's the only island in the world made up of rocks that are formed 6 kilometres below the Earth's mantle, within the Earth's mantle. So it's an incredible geological site to study for that reason. And just playing a little bit of video here. I'm not going to bother with the sound because I don't think the sound works very well. But Macquarie Island was first discovered in 1810, and it became a sealing industry was set up there, which really decimated a lot of the wildlife there. And unfortunately, we don't really have much of an idea of what was there pre-sealers to know how things have recovered. But in 1933, it was declared a wildlife sanctuary. 1997, it was inscribed in the UNESCO World Heritage Register, so is Heard Island. And excitingly, in 2001, it was declared pest-free. So rodents, rabbits and cats have been eradicated from the island, which is very exciting. Now, this photo I wanted to show you, maybe it doesn't look like an overly aesthetically beautiful photo, but it's a very rare photo, and actually there's probably only a couple of places in the world you could capture such a photo. So for those of you that are playing at home, this is in Caroline Cove. But this photo has all 4 species of Macquarie Island penguin in it. So king penguins here, gentoos, royals and rockhoppers. So to talk about king penguins first, they were hunted, their populations were decimated by sealers. They have come back. Last year there was about 62,000 chicks island-wide, and 81% of the whole population is found in this one colony called Lusitania Bay. So it's a mind-blowing spectacle. And you can see in the background of this photo these great big digesters, which are remnants from the sealers, and these things which are protected by heritage status. They just sort of lie in situ in these old penguin colonies. So it's quite haunting to see. Something really cool about penguins is their eyesight. So they have needed to adapt their vision to be able to see both clearly underwater to hunt for prey, and also on land where they need to come to shore to breed. And king penguins in particular are unique among the penguins. So in a sunny condition, when there's a lot of light, they're able to restrict their pupils to this tiny little square sort of pinhole size, and then they can dive up to 300 meters deep in just a few minutes. And so this is quite a dramatic change in light, from going from very light to quite dark as they find depth in the water column. And so they need to account for this, and so they can dilate their pupils by 300 times this size as they dive, which is the greatest change in pupil size of any bird, which I thought was really interesting. And king penguins, which are the second largest species of penguin in the world, they have this gorgeous bright plumage, which is a way they communicate with each other. One theory suggests that the brightness of an individual's plumage determines the health of that individual. One of the other penguin species that we have is gentoo penguins. So Macquarie Island is the only site in the southern Pacific region of the Pacific Ocean region of the Southern Ocean where they're found breeding. And there's thought to be about 774,000 mature individuals worldwide. And a recent estimate on Macquarie Island suggests that there's about 2,500 breeding pairs, and that they are declining by about 1.8% every year over the last 34 years. The third penguin species is called royal penguins, which are endemic to Macquarie Island. So again, they're not found anywhere else in the world. So they're very, very special species. They are what we call a crested penguin. So there's a number of penguins that fall into this, and the crest is that sort of that crest of facial plumage that they've got there, those bright yellow feathers. And so royal penguins are quite similar to macaroni penguins, which we don't have on Macquarie Island, but they are the most abundant species of penguin on Heard Island. They just differ by the colour of their facial plumage. So macaronis have darker facial plumage and royals have white feathers, and they nest in these great big colonies of hundreds of thousands. And so there was a recent paper published that estimated there was about 750,000 breeding pairs on Macquarie Island, and therefore the world, because they're not found anywhere else. So that's really special. And the other penguin species, my personal favourite, is rockhoppers. In 2007, there was estimated to be 37,500 breeding pairs on Macquarie Island and about 1.23 million breeding pairs in the world. So these guys as well are a crested penguin, and you can see by that really beautiful crest that they've got there. And another really cool fact about rockhoppers, is that they're the only penguin species that dive into the water feet first. So I thought that was really cool. And they nest in amongst other bird species like the black-browed albatross, which I'm going to talk about right now. So there's 4 species of albatross on Macquarie Island, and we also have the shy albatross breeding around Tasmania, which is endemic to Australia. So we have these 5 species of albatross in Australian territory. And so there's thought to be about 700,000 breeding pairs of black-browed albatross around the world, and they breed on Macquarie Island, on McDonald and Heard Island as well. Grey-headed albatross also breed on Macca, and these guys are listed as endangered. And there's thought to be about 98,000 breeding pairs in the world. And on Macquarie Island, we've got varies between sort of 80 to 113 breeding pairs. They breed every second year, so it can be a bit difficult to know exactly how much the population is at any given time, but that's sort of what it fluctuates between. Now, albatross and petrels and shearwaters are part of a family of seabirds called proceliforms or tube noses. So you can see in this photo these nostrils that these birds have, and so what is very characteristic of these birds is that they have an amazingly well adapted sense of smell. So that's how they find their food. So they're actually able to smell this chemical in the water called dimethyl sulfate, or DMS. And what that chemical is it's released from these phytoplankton, these single-celled plant organisms, when they are crushed. So when they're eaten by something else, they release this chemical, and that's what these tube nose species of seabirds can smell, and that's how they find their food. And light-mantled sooty albatross also breed on Macquarie Island, Heard Island and McDonald Island. And on Macquarie Island, we have about 10% of the global population. And these 3 species of albatross that I've just spoken about all nest on the slopes, on the coastal escarpments, And since the eradication of rabbits and the grazing has stopped, their habitat is flourishing, basically. So this is beautiful Macquarie Island cabbage here, which is really stabilising this nesting habitat. I'll just play this quick video while I'm talking a little bit more about the albies. So they're super long-lived birds and they're monogamous, which means they mate for life. They have only one partner, and there's a huge investment in this partnership. So they spend years practicing their courtship dances. So that's something that's very famous of albatross. These elaborate courtship dances. And so these guys are just younger birds or non-breeding birds that are just practicing their mating rituals and their dances with one another and developing their skill set, if you will. And wandering albatross is the other species of albatross that we have nesting down there. So this is the largest bird in the world in terms of wingspan. Most people, when they think of an albatross, they'll think of a wandering albatross. So their wingspan can reach up to 3 meters, which is about the size of my Toyota Yaris hatchback, and they are just absolutely incredible. This is a picture of 2 males displaying to each other, showing off their wing size. And so albatross have this incredible adaptation to be able to fly endlessly over the Southern Ocean. They're able to, they have a locking mechanism in their wings where they can essentially lock their wings and just glide over the ocean harnessing the wind energy coming from the updrafts. And so they use very, very little energy to fly, and wandering albatross in particular can circumnavigate the globe up to 3 times in a year. So incredibly efficient flyers. And so there's about 8,050 breeding pairs in the world, 10 of which are found on Macquarie Island. And now, of course, when there is great life, there is also great death. And so let me introduce our predators and our scavengers. So sub-Antarctic skuas or brown skuas are very common in the sub-Antarctic, and they play a very important role in this ecosystem. They don't just hunt dead and dying animals, they also hunt live animals like this squid in this image. And then we also have giant petrels. So this is a southern giant petrel, otherwise known as a stinker, and this one in particular is a red-headed stinker. So it has just been about neck deep inside, I don't know, a dead seal or something. So this is a southern giant petrel, which is found on Macquarie Island as well as Heard Island. And we also have northern giant petrels on Macca. And so you can tell the difference by the colour of their bill tip there. So southern giant petrels have a green bill tip and northern giant petrels have a red bill tip. And so the giant petrels, they did, at first they did really well during the pest eradication, because all of these rodents and rabbits were dying. But unfortunately, about 33% of the population were affected by secondary poisoning from eating poisoned rabbit carcasses. But a recent publication has suggested that their population has actually bounced back since that, which is really positive. I'm just going to turn this sound down so you can hear me talking. So this video is a skua, southern giant petrel and a northern giant petrel, so you can play at home and identify the southern giant and the northern giant between one another. So this is them, scavenging on a penguin carcass, but they're not just scavengers. And I was just reading this last night, it blew my mind. There's this publication that was talking about a southern giant petrel that was observed swimming up to an Australasian gannet out at sea, standing on its back and holding its head under the water to drown it and kill it. So these guys are incredible hunters. And they also are part of that tube nose family, so they use their sense of smell to find food. So the giant petrels are definitely my favourite, I think. Cape petrels, which is just another small species of petrel, has something that has only relatively recently colonised or established on the island. So since 2002, they've been found breeding on Macquarie, and they're very common around the sub-Antarctic, and their population is just continuing to increase at the moment by about 15% every year. And as the vegetation recovers post eradication of rabbits, the habitat for these guys, the breeding habitat for these guys, is just improving magnificently, and it's creating lots of coverage for them to hide from the aforementioned scavengers. Also, Macquarie Island cormorants. So they look very similar to the endemic Heard Island cormorant, but these guys are endemic to Macquarie Island. So one of our 2 species on Macquarie that are not found anywhere else in the world. And these guys are starting to breed on the onshore rock stacks. And so previously, while there were things that were predating upon their eggs, like rodents, they were restricted to just offshore rock stacks, and now they're breeding onshore. Same story with Antarctic terns, which nest on the beach, as well as kelp gulls. And there's also a number of burrowing seabirds which are starting to either colonise or return to the island, such as this grey petrel, which was first reported on Macquarie in 1900, and then it was not seen again until 1999 when breeding was confirmed. And so it's expected, as the island continues to recover, that more species will hopefully colonise the place. And to touch on briefly some of our marine mammals. So this big boy is southern elephant seal, which is the largest species of seal in the world, super iconic of Macquarie Island. The males can reach up to can weigh up to 4,000 kilograms. Incredible animals. The females can weigh up to about 700 kilograms, and they can dive as deep as 2 kilometres and stay underwater on one breath for up to 2 hours. So absolutely incredible animals. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a quick video, and again, I'm going to mute it so you can hear me. You might be familiar with this breeding behaviour from nature docos, but they seals form these large harems where there's up to hundreds of females and one bull or beach master, who all of those girls are his, and he mates with all of them. So the males make for a very low genetic diversity of the population, and they can live up to 14 years, whereas the females live up to 24 years, and only about 10% of males will ever get the chance of reaching sexual maturity. And they just have these amazing fights, which the guy on the left is the beach master and the guy on the right is the contender, and the fight goes on for a little while, but the beach master ends up prevailing, but they cop pretty nasty wounds from them, and throughout the breeding season, which lasts for a couple of months, the beach master has to defend his harem from all of these contenders, all of these challenges. So he stays on land, he doesn't go out to sea to feed, he stays there basically constantly on edge, constantly vigilant, ready for a fight. So it's a horrible life if you're an elephant seal. You can see all of the very grumpy females here, and then all of the little pups. It goes on for a while, this video. And then fur seals. Fur seals, of course, returned, which is really exciting. So they were completely exterminated in the 1800s from the sealers. And then in 1955, they were reported returning to the island. So we have 3 species of fur seals that breed on Macquarie. unfortunately, we don't know much about what the populations were up to pre-sealing days, so it's hard to sort of gauge how, to what extent they have recovered. And this guy on the left here, or on my left, is an Antarctic fur seal, and the one on the right is a sub-Antarctic fur seal. And we get the odd sub-Antarctic furry hauling out along the Victorian coast and the Tasmanian coast, and then also New Zealand fur seals are found on the island, and New Zealand fur seals breed in places off southeastern Australia and Bass Strait, so they're certainly increasing in their numbers. And all three species also have been seen, have been recorded interbreeding with one another and hybridizing, and they're just continuing to increase every year. So at the moment they're increasing by about 12% a year, which is really exciting. Leopard seals are one of the other marine mammals that we find in the sub-Antarctic. We don't actually have them breeding on any of our Australian territories, but they're very common on Heard Island because, it is below that Antarctic polar front. And on Macca, we get individuals hauling out over winter time. Same thing in southern Australia as well. You might get the odd leopard seal that hauls out over winter to rest. And Hooker's sea lion is the other marine mammal that seems to be increasing in abundance. So these guys, or New Zealand sea lions, they breed in the New Zealand sub-Antarctic islands, and they don't breed on Macquarie Island, but the odd sort of immature or juvenile male will come and hang out on Macquarie Island, and they certainly help themselves to the penguins and to young fur seal pups and young elephant seals, and they predate upon them as well. So just sort of in summary, to sort of sum it all up, our sub-Antarctic islands are very hostile environments. We humans are not naturally found living in these environments, and the animals that do live and thrive in these conditions, in these places, are very specialised, and they're very unique animals to be able to live in, the windiest, coldest places on Earth. And because they are so specialised to this extreme environment, it makes them very vulnerable to changes as the environment and as our climate changes. And so, I mean, I hope from this talk that maybe, we can all be ambassadors for these species, and not just these kind of flagship iconic species, but all these species that are found living in the Southern Ocean that rely on this very, very unique environment to thrive. And I guess we can all work towards ensuring a healthy future for these animals. So that's sort of what I'm kind of the key message that I'm aiming to communicate. And so to end on, I just thought I'd finish with this slide of some book titles if you want to learn some more about our islands, our sub-Antarctic islands. If you want to learn some more about their environment and the animals that live there, I would recommend looking up some of these books. And yeah, thank you. Thanks for listening. I think that's it from me.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Mel. That's just a brilliant sort of magnificent collection of images. And I'm just sort of wondering, I can't actually see in that collection of books there, your book, your images are mind-blowingly good. And we've had the great pleasure at the last Marine Volunteers Forum down in Summers a couple of years ago to see a lot more of your photos. And yeah, I just reckon there's a book coming out of your work indeed. So please, in your COVID isolation in Newcastle or on your way down to Tassie or whatever you're doing next, let's get that book let's get that book underway. That'd be fantastic.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you for volunteering to publish me as well. I really appreciate it.
I didn't know I quite said that. But look, might get you to just switch your presentation off now, and we'll just come back to to you on the screen, and hopefully I can get that to work at my amazing control desk here. So let's put you live on screen again, and that's all good. So fantastic, Mel. Look, there has been quite a lot of questions coming through this afternoon, but this is actually a question from me, and I've heard you speak about this previously in relation to what you did touch on very generally at the end, but the impacts of humans on Macquarie Island are not necessarily just to do with feral animals. They've got to do with a lot of other things that are transmitted via the ocean. And I've heard you speak quite passionately about marine plastics in the past. What's sort of the evidence of plastic pollution? What sort of things were you actually seeing in terms of bits and pieces washing up on that faraway place?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you can, I guess, yes, there are plastics that wash up. So all of the prevailing sort of conditions in the Southern Ocean are westerlies. There's very strong westerlies, and so our west coast gets quite a lot of trash, beach wash trash that washes up. So yeah, it's quite prolific. Certainly, the Southern Ocean is not as, it doesn't seem to be as polluted as other places in the world. So the Northern Pacific area where all those sort of gyres meet around the Hawaiian Islands, that, you know, you see those really graphic images of albatross, you know, spewing all kinds of plastic and feeding it to their chicks. That kind of plastic problem is not as severe in the Southern Ocean, but that's not to say that it's not a big issue. You know, certainly any kind of plastics in the marine environment is an issue. They definitely wash up, and it seems to be, from my observations, it seems to be a lot of blue things, blue bottle caps and blue, I don't know, like little bits of blue plastic. So I don't know whether that's something that takes longer to break down in the environment, but yeah, it certainly is an issue, definitely.
Yeah, thanks for that. There's a couple of people have asked questions about visiting. Obviously, and I heard you in the great interview you did on Radio Marinara on Sunday mornings, 9 till 10 o'clock on 102.7 Triple R FM. Just a little bit of a plug there for Bron and the team. But you talked about this as being the Galapagos of the Southern Ocean, and that was a very nice way of describing it. People are interested, obviously, in one of the big challenges and opportunities for places like the Galapagos and Macquarie is visitors. Do visitors get the chance to visit there? And if so, are there issues associated with that? Can you just talk us through a little bit about the tourism side of Macquarie Island?
Yeah, well, I mean, the tourism is a big thing, and you know, the tourism funds a lot of the work, actually. You know, the permit fee that's involved in tourists accessing the island is what funds a lot of the management and scientific monitoring work that occurs there. So that's a great thing. I don't really know what that means and how that is implicated in terms of the current COVID situation, but there are a number of tourist ships that can come down to the island, and there are a number of voyages that you can get on that visits the New Zealand sub-Antarctic islands, which I sort of touched on, and then some of them also visit the Antarctic continent. And typically tourists will be able to land at a beach and they sort of can have free time there and experience some of the royal penguin colonies and king penguin colonies and elephant seals. And yeah, so tourists come only in summertime, but yeah, we can have up to 10, 12 ships a season.
And I'm sure they bring some nice supplies with them as well. Is that true?
Yeah, well, I mean, exactly. Like it's our chance as rangers and as volunteers to go on board at night time and to eat, you know, fresh produce and eat avocados and bananas and these kinds of things. So it's always very exciting, yeah.
I think I've seen a picture of you hoeing down on an avocado at some stage, so very much appreciated, I'm sure. Some questions in relation to life on Macca itself. So one of the questions was, how many researchers are there based on Macca throughout the year? Has it changed in summertime? And give us a bit of a picture of that.
Yeah, it has changed in summertime. So at the moment, the island is actually undergoing a station rebuild. So the research station was established in 1948, so it's quite old and weathered, and so times are changing down there, so there's not as many scientists down there at the moment. There's a lot more tradesmen that are constructing this new station, but when I was there a couple of winters ago, our winter population was, I think it was 14, no, actually it was 17, somewhere between like 14, 17 people, and then over summertime, people can come down, they can get a ride on the tourist ship. So one summer I went down via tourist ship, which was really cool. So I got to experience the New Zealand subs on the way. And so the population can fluctuate up to, 20 odd people over summer. It really depends on the science projects that are active at the time.
And sort of related to that, I guess, you mentioned the fact that there's a lot of people who are doing the sort of techie side of keeping everybody warm and safe and looking out for fire and that kind of stuff. I've read a bit about that. In terms of the science, one of the big questions would be, how do you manage to count all of those penguins and seals and albatross and things like that? It's a bit of a challenge, I would imagine. How does that actually happen?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I mean, some of the species on the island have been monitored for like 26 years now consistently, so getting these amazing long-term data sets that really can indicate these population threats and changes. But in terms of actually strategies that we use to monitor the species, it varies depending on species. So wandering albatross, they nest on top of the plateau. They're this giant white bird that you can see from hundreds and hundreds of meters away. And we've got like 10 pairs, so they're very easy to keep track of. Whereas like the light mantled albatross, there's about 1,500 breeding pairs, I think. And so we can't monitor the whole population. So over the last 24 years, 25 years, we've had sort of small study sites that we've just counted within those study sites. So it really depends on the species. The king penguins, we just count the big brown fluffy chicks because they're very obvious and they're much easier to count. So yeah, it varies depending on the species, but a lot of the strategies that are used have been developed over many years, and they've been repeated over many years. So some of them we may not have an accurate idea of the whole population, but we have a trend of what a certain amount is doing over, decades. So that's really the key bit of information.
Yeah, and it's really pleasing to hear the bounce back since the eradication of the feral species. There's a question came in around that whole question of eradicating things, obviously involving baits, etc. The consequences of that probably would have been recognised. You mentioned, I think was it the skuas that had been impacted in particular by taking animals that had died. Was there any sort of other negative consequences, or do you think that the benefits far outweighed the costs? Give us a bit of a perspective on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not the best person to talk for this because I wasn't around during the MyPEP, so the Macquarie Island Pest Eradication Project time. And certainly that is a very negative side effect. It was mainly giant petrels and mainly northern giant petrels that were impacted. But definitely, in my opinion, the benefits outweigh the negatives. I mean, the species that have never even been recorded breeding on the island are starting to colonise the island because now they have habitat that they can burrow and nest in, and species that have been extinct from the island are returning, and that's not just because of the exploitation days of the sealers, it's because we have created this pest-free environment. So certainly generations of the past have done a lot of wrongs on these special places, and it's sort of about righting those wrongs. This Macquarie, the model of Macquarie Island, and the sort of case study of Macquarie Island is proving an example to model other eradication strategies in other islands, and so how we can, mitigate those, the deaths of the scavengers and this kinds of thing. But it's really great that they have bounced back. Yeah, it's unfortunate that there was this secondary poisoning, very much unfortunate. But also the numbers were kind of artificially high because there was this abundant prey source of rabbits that wouldn't typically be there as well. So, yeah.
No, look, it's certainly one of the big challenges in park management is, overabundant species, particularly exotic species that don't belong in a place, and the impact they have on parks and reserves and the vegetation in particular. I'm just, again, admiring your backdrop there and thinking, wow, that vegetation, the cabbage, what do you call it? The cabbage palm, cabbage leaves.
Yeah, the Macquarie Island cabbage and all that.
Wouldn't be there with the rabbits.
And you know what, so I've spent the last 3 summers down there, and even in that time, I've seen incredible recovery of vegetation. These sub-Antarctic environments, they're quite extreme in a lot of ways, and they tend to have a die-off over winter. So the island is virtually deserted by all of the animals over winter time, and a lot of the plant species kind of has a bit of a die-off, and everything comes back in summer, to the extreme, and there's a really high nutrient load in summertime, and then everything just flourishes. And just within the last 3 years, I've seen the plant species increase to, in some areas, that cabbage that I showed, that the light-mantled albatross was nesting underneath. Some areas there's cabbage plants that are larger than me, which is just incredible. So yeah, it's been really exciting to watch that in just a 3-year lifespan. In just a 3-year time period for me, but it's been almost 10 years since the island was pest-free. So yeah, it's really exciting to follow the progress.
Well, let's hope it stays that way for a long time to come.
Yeah.
Look, we're going to probably have time for one more. Oh, actually, one's just popped up on my screen here, which is something which I'm not even know how to pronounce this one. I think it's leucistic penguins. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see any leucistic penguins? If so, did you study them?
Yes, I did see them, and no, I didn't study them. But I did. Well, yeah, I did sort of keep track of them. So for those that don't know what leucistic means, it's sort of like albinism. So it is birds that I wish I had a photo. Maybe I can show a photo at some other stage. But birds that are essentially white, very white in their plumage. Sometimes light-coloured eyes. It's just their colour pigments, but they're not albinos. And yes, there's king penguins, there's royal penguins that I've seen that are leucistic, and also actually over the last few years, I've seen what I believe is the same individuals in the same spots, which is really cool. So I photographed this, leucistic royal penguin in one spot, and then the following summer I saw it again in the same spot. And so, that shows that they survive, I guess, and they're able to hunt and hopefully breed. But yes, that is a thing, definitely.
Fantastic. My last question for you is, you're living on a isolated place like Macquarie Island, and particularly Macquarie Island over winter. I know from certainly what you talked about previously and on the interview on Radio Marinara last weekend, you talked about living in the hut at the other end, of the southern end of the island, basically away from the main base there. We're all sort of, particularly those people in Melbourne who are with us today, living in somewhat isolation. Give us 3 top tips for how do you keep sane when you can't get out and do the things that you might like to do normally, or is that just a good thing being there anyway? Okay, great. Put me on the spot. Thank you. 3 top tips. Okay,
personally, I like to write. So I like to write down my feelings and my thoughts. Anything. Food is the second thing. So we can all, I mean, we all need to eat. It's definitely, I mean, you know, you have a lot of days when you're stuck in the field hut when the weather is inclement and you're stuck inside, and you just spend all day thinking about what you're going to make, you know, making beautifully elaborate things, and, you know, spending a long time making them, and then of course enjoying that food. So that's a huge part of well-being down there. And what's the other one? Oh, I don't know. I mean, I love to weather watch as well. And where I am at the moment in Newcastle, it's been like crazy rain over the last few days, and we had these amazing winds last week, and of course you guys can't go outside, and I mean, I guess you can go outside to exercise, but you can't go outside to, I don't know, sea watch or whatever, but you can enjoy the weather from indoors, and enjoy the weather patterns from indoors. So those are the things I like to do, I guess.
Yeah, good on you, Mel. Now, that's fantastic, and what a great way of explaining, you know, sort of life is not over when you can't go too far. Again, being in such a magnificent place, so even just peeking out the window occasionally, obviously it had its own reward. So yeah, well done. Thanks for that impromptu question on that one. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap this session up now, so I'm going to say very much from my heart, thank you for your work. I've known you now for quite a few years. The first time I think I met you, you used to come into the Queenscliff Parks office covered in bird poo because you were studying gannets out of the magnificent Pope's Eye. And yeah, Mel, you weren't known necessarily as Smelly Melly, but there was certainly a potential for that. But no, seabird researcher, Deakin University, volunteer on Macquarie Island, extraordinary volunteer down in the Warrnambool area. So yeah, take my hat off to you, Mel, for all the great work you do. Keep it up, and good luck with your PhD. I know you're already in class time, and you're somehow going to make your way down to the University of Tasmania in the coming days, weeks, months, whatever it takes, basically. But yeah, we all from Victoria wish you all the best for your next part of your magnificent journey. So thank you. Thanks
so much, Mark. No, thank you very much, and thanks for giving me the platform to present and show some of my photos. And yeah, I really appreciate it. I love it.
It's absolutely our pleasure. So yeah, we'll hopefully catch up with you soon. So we'll say goodbye to Mel for now from the point of view of things. I'm going to put my dial back up on the screen again just to finish up the session for today. But really, what a magnificent opportunity we've had this afternoon to see one part of Australia that most of us, to be realistic, will never ever get the opportunity to see. So it's through the eyes of magnificent photographers like Mel and the scientists who actually study these incredible species that live in these isolated places. It's you know, our good fortune that we've got people like Mel out there doing great work and helping look after our parks. Just a quick thing to finish up. Be aware this presentation, as I said at the beginning, is being recorded. So if you did know of others who missed the presentation today, then you've got the opportunity to do a rewind. That'll be posted on Parks Victoria's YouTube channel as soon as possible. We'll get that sorted in the next couple of weeks. I want to put a quick plug in for the rest of the Winter by the Sea program. We've got some great things coming up. Someone also who spent, like Mel, spends a bit of time in Warrnambool is Mandy Watson from the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, who's our next Winter by the Sea Speakers Tent presenter. That'll be next Tuesday. We've gone a little bit out of sequence. We're actually doing 3 Tuesdays in a row. That'll be focusing on the southern right whales, and Mandy's had a long-term professional interest in both rescuing but also monitoring southern right whales. So something very exciting to look forward to. There's a great presentation coming up from a wonderful volunteer in East Gippsland in 2 weeks' time, and that'll be the incredible Don Love. He'll be talking about his experiences in diving in the Gippsland Lakes, something that you possibly had not thought about doing, but Don and his cohort from Friends of Beware Reef have been doing some great work there, looking and documenting what's actually living in the lake system itself. And I'll put the last plug-in I'll put is for a fantastic workshop coming on as part of the series that Coast Care are preparing for at the moment. It'll be a really exciting one on how to put together a fantastic digital story. So our Coast Care colleagues are putting that together as we speak. That'll be a great way of helping you as community members or as individuals, as students, or anyone really who wants to communicate, to be able to put together a story and present that in a digital format. So something very exciting to look forward to in August, and more details of that are coming soon. If you haven't already looked at some of those things, or you haven't considered joining some of those ones previously, get back into the original link, and I'll post that link again in the follow-up email to you all with some further information about how people can join those ones. So just in closing, once again, thank you, Mel, for the fantastic presentation. Thank you, participants, for joining us. Thanks, Catherine, for the great tech support there in the background and keeping people on track. Really appreciate your help as always, but most importantly, stay safe out there. Those of you in Melbourne area, we are thinking of you and hope that you're all safe and well. And stay isolated to keep us together, I think, is the slogan. So let's look after each other and do the right thing, and let's kick this virus in the rear end and get it out the window. All right, folks, we'll see you same time next week on the same bat station, Winter by the Sea speakers tent, Tuesday next week. Bye for now.